All right, welcome to the Erie Music History Podcast. I'm Chip Shell, your host, and we have two Bobs in the studio with us today. We have Bob Seaman and Bob Walkow. Both of you playing Abbey Road today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Now, we're going to get into your backgrounds. You guys have been friends for a long time. Eventually, we'll just go alphabetically, if that's all right. We'll go with Bob Seaman first. But first of all, Bob Walkow, I know Abbey Road, you were a founding member back in '95, right?
Yeah, Bob Seaman is the one that actually organized.
It was my idea.
I did not know that. Yeah, I didn't think you, Bob Seaman, were in the band originally.
It's a long story, but it's about humility.
He's been the foundation.
It's my band.
Okay, I did not know that. All right.
But when you play with me, we're all equal.
All right. So that was.
He gets the checks.
When did you?
I get to handle all the business, which is really a lot of fun.
When did you start playing bass with them, Bob Seaman?
With Abbey Road?
Yeah.
I formed it.
You did? Oh, okay.
Well, I've been playing bass since 1966.
But I mean, in Abbey Road, though, you were right at the beginning. I didn't realize
it was my idea.
All right, good.
And
good.
Actually, all the people didn't know each other.
Okay.
I was. The story is, I came out of gym class, and Bob Walker was setting up to play at Noonday Dance. It was 25 cents, and I look, and they have all Vox amps. They have all the Gibson guitars.
Where is this?
This is at lunch. It's Strong Vincent.
It's Strong Vincent? Okay.
Coming out.
Yeah.
And from that point on, I went up on lunch. I paid my quarter, and Bob was playing harmonica, acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
The J160 had a Hofner. He had the big amp. They had a very small PA, and they were doing 3-part harmony.
Wow.
So I thought of him first.
Yeah.
And I played with Rick Cass with the Ron Sedgy show doing this Elvis thing for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And he became one of my favorite drummers in the world.
He's a lot of people's favorite drummer.
Okay, and then I played with Mike Miller in 1977 and 78 in a band called Rocker.
Yep.
And he said one day, he says, well, we're doing to She Loves You. I said, okay. And then him and I sang, and I go, wow, that was really good. We should do more. He goes, no, the drummer hates the Beatles. And he says, he's just letting me do this one song. So I thought of him. And I thought that would be the perfect 4-piece.
Yeah.
And it was the perfect 4-piece. But it's become a 5-piece because of trying to find someone. Mike Miller plays keyboards,
right,
lead guitar, bass, and sings all the McCartney and Lennon stuff. Bob plays keyboards, bass, guitar, and sings Lennon parts and the Harrison parts,
right,
and some McCartney things. So when we got together, I let Mike had the highest voice. He did the McCartney. Bob does the Harrison, and I would do the Lennon. But as people changed, I ended up on the top part.
All right.
As the voicings changed. But my ideal band was the 4 people that had never met each other.
Yeah.
And when I called them all to come to practice, he didn't show up one night. Then he shows up another night. No one came. It took about a month to get them all in the same room.
When you say you're pointing at Bob Walkow.
I forgot. I'm looking at you.
This is
I think I'll look over this way.
That's all right. That's all right. Sorry about that.
But it took a year to learn 14 songs.
Okay. Wow.
And nothing's thrown together.
And I heard from Mike Miller that first gig wasn't exactly perfect.
We only had 14 songs. I
Right.
had called Dennis Cohen, and he put us in a trailer. And we were on, I think, 9th Street, and they were backed up to 6th Street.
This is Erie days, right?
Erie days. There was more people watching us than main stage, and they said, one more, and we didn't have one more. So we dug deep and just threw a couple that we did know that were, not polished. All the music we've done has been well rehearsed.
Yeah. And today you've got 5 guys in the band.
Correct.
You got you two, the 2 Bobs. You got 2 Johns, right? Or no?
No,
Yeah.
John,
John?
John Richardson. You're right.
Yeah, we got 2 Johns, and we got 1 Tom.
And 1 Tom.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Who plays what? Tell everybody who plays
Well,
what
let
in
Bob
the band.
do some talking
Yeah, go ahead,
here.
Bob.
He's
Well, I play the guitar, basically the guitar, and I'm the keyboardist.
Right.
And John Puzar plays the guitar. Tom Laskowski plays the acoustic guitar, because there's so many songs that the Beatles recorded with acoustic background.
Sure.
Acoustic rhythm. And John Richardson, who's played many Erie bands in the past 50, 60 years, is our latest drummer. We've had 2 other people that have been in the band, and that was Paul Rogers, who was actually from Wales.
Right.
He was in the band for about 14 years, and along with Tim Driscoll, they're both excellent musicians.
Great drummers.
And
Yeah.
we were fortunate, though, we were able to continue going, the Two Bobs, so to speak.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll continue with the Two Bobs podcast here. You guys are both about 73, 74?
No, we're
73.
We're all 49ers.
You're four. Okay. All right.
Four of us were born in 49. I was born in July. John and Bob, John Puzar and him were born one day apart in August. And John Richardson was born in October, and the young guy was born in 54.
And you guys both are Indians fans, is that right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You've been friends
all of
a
us.
long
Oh,
time.
yeah.
You all are. That's crazy.
Now
All
it's
right.
called the Guardians.
Yeah, right. I was going to say, I don't know if I can say the Indians anymore.
I've known John Puzar every day of his life. We were both in St. Vincent's Hospital when we were born.
Wow.
He was born 2 days after me, and that was back in the days when the mothers would stay in the hospital for 4 days.
Yeah.
So one day, probably about 20 years ago, I thought about that because I have always known we had the same birth date, or within 2 days of each other. And I asked, "What hospital were you born in, John? Was it Hammond or St. Vincent's?" He goes, "Oh, St. Vincent's. That means we've been together."
Oh, my
You know,
gosh.
and we've basically got along ever since then.
I was going to say, yeah, you've known each other for a long time. Even the two of you have played together. Did you play in bands together before?
No,
then?
I never
Not Abbey
played
Road.
before 95. I always wanted to play in a
Okay.
band with him. I always wanted to play in a band with Phil Popotnik.
Yeah.
These are the people that I didn't play at the time.
Yeah.
I would go see at the dances and say, geez, wish I could do that.
Sure. Well, Bob Seaman, let's start with you then. First of all, you're retired, I imagine, right?
9 years.
From what?
Working for the state, management,
All right. And
secret stuff.
Secret stuff. That's
Yeah.
fine.
It
All right.
makes people wonder about me.
You mentioned Strong Vincent before. Is that where you went to high school?
We both went to high school.
Okay. And I know that you were a little bit of a boxer. Like you said, your dad was a...
My dad was a professional fighter. No, I think the only fight I had in high school, he was watching.
Okay. All right. And
I won.
and you
That was the only fight I had in high school.
did you were a piano player at first, right? Or
No, I didn't. I played guitar.
Oh, you did?
And,
Okay.
He was playing with Clark Walker at the time, and they were playing with him, throwing him out. And then he came up to my house, and I just played guitar, and I was studying for Moses Ronzitti. And he says, "Would you like to play bass with us at a gig next month?" And I says, "I don't play bass." They said, "We're going to get you a bass. We'll teach you the songs." So they taught me 5 or 6 songs. I went to this, what's that place out on Route 5 that St. Joe, they had the dances where they had all the like the DJs and stuff. Yeah, the Fairfield Club. I played there.
Oh.
And then they says, "Well, okay." I thought I was done. And they says, "No, we're band picture." And they took the band picture. And I looked at that. I go, "Geez, this is nice." So they said, "Well, you can be in the band if you buy a Hofner." So I bought a Hofner. And then
And what
Bob
year is this?
This is 66, 67.
Okay.
And Bob found out. He came up to my house, and we became friends because I didn't know him. I never spoke to him.
So this was this
This
December's
was 66.
Children?
Yeah, that became December's Children.
Okay.
And that lasted for about a year.
And talk about the guys, and you mentioned Kirby Locke, right?
Oh,
Rick?
yeah. There was Kirby Locke and Clark Walker approached me about doing it. And
Rick Dragoon was your...
Rick Dragoon was the drummer. We
Right.
practiced at his house. And then I guess I didn't even know Jim Raid played for a little bit with me. He played with him.
Yeah, I know he was
I
listed
had
on
that. I
that.
brought this clipping and stuff, but
How about Tommy Martin? He played keyboards with you or no?
no, there was a kid here that is in this picture that I have that he didn't really play. It didn't
Okay.
work out. Jim Raid played a little bit. It was just a 4-piece and only lasted for some private parties and the talent shows.
Wyco?
Wyco, yeah, I played
Yeah.
all those things.
Right.
It's, it was. I think it was $20 the band got, or
Is that what
or
it
maybe
was?
it was a $5 bill and we got $1 a piece.
Oh, okay.
It was $5 we got, but you got to play in front
Sure.
of girls,
And that was
you didn't
at-
have to talk to them. So
Was that Downtown Y or...
actually, the Downtown Y was where it started. Then Junior, the one at the up in 38th Street, never did have bands, but it was down there.
Okay.
All the bands, Bobby Berger, all the bands would
Right.
go, and all the kids would go there.
I've heard everybody's talked about
Yeah.
playing Wyco, but Teens and Talent, I feel like I've heard that before.
This
You
was
brought this
Ben
ad.
Agresti. It was Ben Agresti.
Yeah.
And,
And what-
there's a girl's name there, and they interviewed people, and the bands played.
And what
And,
was
I
this on?
think
This
Bob
is on
played
Channel
it at-
12.
That was
Yeah.
yeah.
It was at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
It was every Saturday night.
Every
And
Saturday
and it was-
night, all the local bands.
Oh, okay, all right.
And you had arrived.
This is super cool. I mean, Security People's Trust Company. I'll post a picture of this. Teens and Talent. Who was Bob Powers? Bob Powers Production. Any idea?
I got nothing.
I think he was the adult.
He was the adult in charge of the children.
Producer.
Okay.
He was the producer of it. I haven't heard that name in 50 years.
Yeah, so I love how it says the music of December's children, and it also says Go-Go Girls, Gay Salter and Karen Langer, song stylist Melody Glass, and the Four Keys. I wonder how Gay Salter and Karen Langer feel about.
I
They were
think
just
they're
the
still
Go-Go
in
Dolls.
area. I think
They were-
Gay Salter, I hear that name. I think she went to Vincent.
All right. Well, Gay, if you're listening, let us know. Okay, so Teens and Talent. Bob Walkow, did you ever play this?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Who'd you play
I
that
think
with?
We were actually the first act that actually played there on that TV show. It's unfortunate that you don't have any video recordings at that time or even in kinemascope.
That'd be great. Yeah.
We buy them and burn them.
Years later, I did ask Hal Richmond. He was a local
Sure.
newscaster in the '80s, from the '50s through the '80s, and I was got to know him rather well. And I asked him if they had any kinemascopes of those old 1960s shows, and he checked, and they didn't have.
Okay.
Any. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great.
No, it was fun.
You played it with who?
Oh, it was our group in high school was called the Marauders.
Okay. Oh, that's a great
It
name.
was named after the. I think it came up with the. I didn't come up with the name. Another guy in the group came up with the name, and I think it was after the Ford Mustang came out. Their next car that they introduced was the Marauder.
You guys naming bands after cars. Like I just had Tim Gerline, who was in the Cyclones and the Calientes, which are both cars. So now the Marauders.
Well, you had to because the Beatles name was already taken.
Yeah,
so
right.
they couldn't do it.
All right. So, Bob Seaman, you do a little bit of that. Like you said, December's Children doesn't last very long, about a year. Do you go into group therapy from there?
Denny Cray called me, and he had a band, Group Therapy. He had Bob Tome on guitar, who was very young, like 14, but could play anything. And Dan Snow, Dr. Snow's son, who was a singer. So I was in a mixed-race band in high school.
Did Dr. Snow sing too also?
Well,
in another
Tony
band?
Snow, his brother,
Tony.
he played guitar and sang.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
But Dan was also a singer. Dan was in the movie Warriors as an extra. He also did a lot of stuff of Shakespearean. He went to Edinburgh when I went to Edinburgh.
Oh, okay.
And Bob went to Edinburgh at the same time. We went to college at the same time.
All right.
And the same college.
So Ange is in that band, Angelo and Natalie, right?
I met Angelo and Natalie at the teen dance with Dickie Buckle, and Angelo was singing Sunny. He starts out really low. By the time he gets done to the really fifth key change, he's singing tenor notes that you cannot believe. And he's 15.
And that's when you first met him.
And I says, geez, I'd like to play with him.
Yeah. Well, another guy you played with, Mike Goodwin, right? He was in that band.
Well, actually, we hired Mike Goodwin. The original keyboard player was Bill Madeira, and he was replaced by Mike Goodwin. And then I played with Mike in Ruby Port and Poe and a bunch of different bands. I played with him till 75.
So group therapy only lasts, what, a year?
Group therapy lasts from 67 to 69.
Okay.
And then in 1970, I was playing at the Evergreens with Bob Tome, Angela Natale, Kim Freeze, and we were just playing on weekends at the college.
As what?
I don't even remember.
Okay. Yeah, we should say the Evergreens burned down.
Yeah,
It was
I
in
don't even
Edinburgh.
know.
Yeah, right.
And then in 71, when I got done at college, as mutual agreed, Paul Yocklin had been coming around, and it was introduced to me in 1969.
Okay.
I was working at the drugstore part time as delivering prescriptions, and he met Bob Tome and stuff. And then in 1970 he talked about us playing with him, and I was still in college locally. And then he went back on the road. They went back to Boston, and then he came back in 71.
We should point out that's the younger brothers.
Yeah,
at that
the younger
point.
brothers. Yeah, it's the younger brothers. And
he comes back.
And then Vinny came back. Vinny put a band together, played at Anthony's with George Pushgard.
Yep.
Paul put a band together called Ruby Port in 71. It was a two horn players, Pete Natale and Art Olageri, and then Angelo on drums. He asked me who I knew. So I had Angelo, I had myself, and Angelo played with Dickie Buckle.
Right.
Dickie Buckle knew Nicky Nardo. Nicky Nardo knew Paula Grack.
Right.
That's how it, and then that lasted about a year. And then Brian Fells came in with Angelo Arduini and played for a couple of years. And then they all left to go on the road like 74. And then I stayed at the Calabrese Club with Poe for 74, 75.
So you did not go travel with them?
No, I got married.
Ah, okay. All right. All right.
No, they actually all the bands left Erie in '78 when we were playing. I was playing 5 nights a week in Erie and working full time.
Yeah, I was going to say. So
I was working and playing.
Ruby Port 71.
I was
starts.
playing 11 to 3, 11 to 3 from 71 through 78. I never moved my equipment in 5 years.
From the Calabrese Club.
Never moved it. It smelled terrible when I brought it home, but I never moved it.
How was that? I mean, having that type of regular gig. I mean, I've talked to other folks.
It was wonderful, but the thing is, when you had the flu, you still played.
Yeah, right. And
I don't care how sick you were.
How was it? How was a crowd? I think I asked Paula this.
Well, we were after hours, so we started at 11 o'clock. It was empty, and at 1:30 in the morning, it was your last chance. About 500 people come through the door.
Really?
Well, it was 1:30 in the morning, and there's band played till 3.
Yeah, right.
And everyone looked beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, at that point, sure, yeah. So,
and back then, people drank till 3 in the morning and went to work on a Wednesday.
Yeah, it was a different time for sure.
I don't know how they did it,
but you kind of glossed over the fact that you had been thrust into being a bass player because you were playing guitar originally. Did you?
I only wanted to be with musicians. I only wanted to be in a band.
Okay.
And so I want to be part of a group.
Did you ever go back to playing guitar? Or?
Well, I play guitar. I studied from Basil Ronzitti from 71 through 72.
Okay.
And then I took some guitar in 75, and then I studied from Basil from 1995 to 2005.
Wow.
And I studied upright from him in guitar. I only want to be a bass player.
Okay, that's what I wondered.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just want to be in a band, and I like singing harmony.
Yeah.
And I just like being in a group.
Well, you've done that for a long time.
And hanging out with musicians.
Yeah. So you talked about Ruby Port becomes Poe. You're not in it?
Well, Poe was my band.
Okay.
I took over, and then Durf left Ron Seggi, and that's where I met Rick Cass.
Oh, okay.
And Rick Cass had left, and he came back. And then after Rick Cass, I met Bobby Rayfield, got me an audition with Mike Miller. I got that gig.
Which was what band?
A rocker.
Okay, right.
And we did stuff with Tom O'Cam.
Yeah.
And Mike the drummer. And we played like Cheap Trick and stuff like that, and Cars, whatever when someone wants to play, I'll come in and play it.
Go back to Poe for a minute, though. Ruby Port was a 10-piece band. Was Poe that big too, or who was in that awesome picture you're handing me here?
Can you find me in the picture?
I know Paula Grack's there, and where are you? Wow. That is
where
some
am
long
I?
hair you've got there. You've got a sheepdog that you're holding.
You see what God did to me?
That's very impressive.
Yeah. He must hate me. He must hate me.
That is a great picture. Alan Smith Photography, Poplar Street. It says on the back. All right, so there's 6 people.
I think you still owe him $50 for that picture.
There's 5
Alan,
folks.
if you're out there, find me.
Who else do we have here besides Paula?
Mike Goodwin's on the far right.
Okay.
On the left is Jim Streeter from Cleveland. He was like Rick Wakeman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he came to Erie. I let him live in my side room for a while. He was eating cans of beans and practicing all day. He took from my teacher, Basil Ronzitti, and he was tapping his foot really hard, and Basil wouldn't let you tap your foot hard, but he had his leg going like crazy. This guy could play anything.
Huh.
And I guess he gave up music and went into computers.
Okay.
He was like a genius. The one to my left there is my dog, fella.
Yep. Awesome.
Our first sheepdog. And that's the person missing from the picture is Steve McConnell.
Oh.
He was supposed to meet us at 4:00.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Right. So Steve was
we're
the
still
drummer.
looking for Steve.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, he says, I forgot. I said, well, you're not in the picture.
All right. So Poe was around for how long?
Probably a year and a half. We were playing at the Calabrese Club, and then when they wanted us to go back to playing the music Ruby Port played, and Bob Tome and Paula Grack refused.
Okay.
So we went got some gigs and played some stuff, but that fell apart. And Bob Tome, I think at that time he was auditioning to replace Phil Keaggy in Glass Harp.
Glass Harp, right.
So they were these guys were like they were living in Cleveland, starving in Akron.
Right.
Hitchhiking home to eat out of their parents' refrigerator. I was just working and playing.
They eventually
and they eventually, the stuff like I played with some of the guys from the Snowmen, Kevin Deaver.
Sure.
And he played in the Ron Sedgy show for a while. And they're really fantastic musicians, but they'd lock themselves into a garage and practice all summer,
right,
with no air conditioning.
That's where Steve McConnell was, by the way.
Yeah.
That's why
I never wanted to do any of that. And then my wife wouldn't let me.
Right. So some of these guys like Paula and Bob
Paula,
Tome,
Paula and Angela became
Clockwise, right? Or Jonah,
born again Christians,
right?
And they had talked to me about playing with them and stuff, but I would never.
Didn't get into that.
Yeah, it wasn't my thing.
Sure. Yeah.
I respect them, and
yeah,
they're all my friends.
Yep,
and they always will be.
What happens then? We're up into the 80s now, I think, right?
Yeah, that's I was playing with Jeff Berger for a little bit in a band called Gold Rush that was with Grutt and
okay.
I think it was George Pushcard.
Okay, all names.
And then after that, I auditioned for a band called Image. It was a wedding band.
Okay.
And I didn't have to audition. When they found out who I was, I got the gig. But I played weddings for about a year and a half. And then Grutt and them and Starfire, which I played with them in 80, 81, Durf replaced me. Then Eddie Deese replaced me, and then they asked me back, and I played for another year with them.
For those folks who don't know, as they're hearing you say words like Grutt and Durf, which are odd words, but if you listen to this podcast, right, everybody knows.
They've been my friends forever.
Exactly right.
And that's what they want you to call them.
And everybody calls Durf. Everybody talks about Durf.
Actually, that is on his driver's
license. I know
license.
That's his real name, but I mean, they mention his name a lot.
But
so.
I've always had substitute bass players for me.
You have? Okay.
I've had Bob play for me. I've had Durf play for me. I've had Kevin Benzik play for me. I've had Bobby Rayfield. Just because when I joined the bands, I go, I can't play every gig.
Right.
And
so you were always playing.
Yeah, and I always had backups and stuff. But when I give my word, I've had gigs where I took low money and then got offered a lot of money, but I still played for the low money.
Sure, right.
Because I gave my word.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I also played with, after that, I didn't play from 1984 to 1995.
Kids?
Children, working overtime at work,
sure.
And just raising my kids. I spent time with my kids, and it worked out real good.
And after that, Report Reforms, you play with them for a little bit?
Well, actually, no. What happened, in 95, I put Abbey Road together, and Paul Yocklin was playing with a band. They were called the Younger Brothers, and they had a gentleman named Dave Cathy, who was like a clone of Wayne Newton.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, this guy could play sax, and he could sing Styx. He could sing Wayne Newton. You'd swear, Daddy, don't walk so fast. And I was doing that on and off and traveling with them where we're playing like in Warren and these goofy gang things. And then I started playing with Ed Matthews in String Theory, and that became Stiletto.
Okay.
And I did Stiletto from 2010 to 2018. And in 2011, Ruby Port reformed for an anniversary 40th, and then we played from 2011 to 2018. I played with Carl Holtman, Basil Ronzitti as a sideman, then Mambo in 2020, Abbey Road. And the biggest things I ever did was probably the Christmas show with Amanda Post.
Oh, really?
Warner, where I was played upright and read quite a bit.
Why is that the biggest thing? What do you mean?
Because I always wanted to play at the Warner Theater.
Oh, that was.
I've only played there once.
Oh, really? Okay, that was going to be one of my questions.
Yeah, because it means a lot to me.
Sure.
Yeah. And I've never stood there.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And Abbey Road, we played
very good too.
Yeah.
We played the Hard Rock 3 times in Pittsburgh.
With who?
Abbey Road played.
Oh, okay.
They gave away a trip to Liverpool, And it was, I wasn't us, but it was absolutely packed.
Yeah.
But you had to be there to win the trip. And we played the John Lennon room in the Hard Rock.
No, the Rock and Roll Hall.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So we've done, that's
cool.
probably the only things I can really say. It's just basically playing music with, I played last night with Phil Popotnick. I played with him Friday. This is like living the dream.
Good. That's exactly
And
what
I haven't
this
gone to work
podcast
in
is.
9 years.
Good. That's what this podcast is all about. Yeah. All right. Well, good. Let's switch to Bob number 2. Bob Walkow. Jump up on that mic.
All right.
You saw the Beatles in '66, right?
That's
in
correct.
Cleveland.
That's
and
correct.
Obviously, you showed me some pictures before. You were already playing the year I was born in '64, and you already were influenced by the Beatles by that point.
Oh, definitely. Just to give you a little synopsis, my father was a very accomplished musician. He played the violin and he played the clarinet and saxophone very, very well. And he played in bands in Erie pre-World War II.
Oh, okay.
And then when he came back from World War II, he would play around the house every once in a while and things like that, but he never became active like in the Erie music scene after the war. But we always had music in our house. I started taking clarinet lessons in 4th grade at Emerson School.
Okay.
So I guess I would have been, 9 years old at the time and everything. And my father always said, if you learn to play the clarinet, then it's basically the same fingering for the saxophone. We also had a piano in our house, and I still have that at my home now. And it was my mother's piano, and she noodled a little bit, and she took some lessons, but it was always there. So we did have music. One of my fondest memories growing up was my father listening to his classical records and his big band records. We had a very small, probably 1,100, maybe less square foot apartment that we lived in. And you could hear that music at night and everything.
Sure.
He'd be playing the Glenn Miller and the Dorsey Brothers and Benny Goodman and Artie Shaw and all these people, and the Tchaikovsky and Grieg, Beethoven. So it was always there. So I was drawn towards, I really was considering a career in music, trying to be a good enough clarinet or saxophone player to go to Eastman or Oberlin as far as a music school. And so in the fall of '63, maybe August or so, I thought, I'm going to learn to play the guitar, primarily to cheat on the piano.
Gotcha.
Learn to play guitar chords, know what the notes are, and then put my fingers on the keyboard on the piano.
All right.
And that's primarily why I did that. And so I was learning to play the guitar. I had this plastic guitar. I was taking clarinet and saxophone lessons, but I had this it would be about a classical guitar size with nylon strings, but it was made 100% of plastic. And I was learning to play that. And then this is during the time, pre-Beatles by about 5 or 6 months. I was always very fortunate that, when I was growing up, when I was probably from 10 until 15, I had a paper route. Mm-hmm. And it was by the time I was 15, it was a large paper route, about 80 papers. And you'd have to, my grandfather, he was a Finnish immigrant, made us a box that I could put on my sled, that I could drag the papers around on those cold Sunday mornings when I had to deliver.
Sure.
But the 80 papers allowed me to save a hell of a lot of money. And, when you're a young kid, there's not any money to, what are you going to spend it on? A candy bar costs a nickel.
Is it 2 cents a paper?
A paper was 7 cents at the time.
Okay.
And it was 62 cents for the week. And
Where were you lugging all those papers?
This is on the lower west side of Erie, between Raspberry and Poplar, between the Bayfront and 5th Street.
In the winter, that's a fun place, I'm sure, to be.
It was fun, but Erie you didn't realize that there were parts of the world that were warm at that time. That was as much as I knew.
Right.
But but I was able to then save all this money, and then all of a sudden in January of '64, that's when we really first heard our first Beatles song, and that was "I Want to Hold Your Hand." I did like rock and roll before that time. I especially idolized the Everly Brothers and groups that used a lot of harmony. I enjoyed the Four Seasons very much. That they were all pre-Beatles, And then when the Beatles came out, all of a sudden I'm in ninth grade. This is this was a real difficult, a sad time in the country because President Kennedy was killed in November.
Right.
So, I mean, the whole country, I was really in the doldrums throughout, the latter part of '63. Actually, the day that President Kennedy was killed, I had to deliver papers twice. The first set of papers said that Kennedy had been shot, and then you had to go, they called you at home and said you got to go back to the bin and pick up your another, we're delivering a special edition that says that President Kennedy was dead.
Right.
So I remember very much doing that. But then when the Beatles came out in January with the first record, there was a certain amount of enthusiasm, especially with young people throughout the Erie area. And now all of a sudden I go to a little ninth grade party or something like that. I could actually play the guitar.
Yeah.
And I was learning right away Beatles songs, as best I could, but certainly didn't have the skill to listen to a record and get all the chords correctly. But I thought, no, this is what I want to do. The first little lead part I remember playing it is It Won't Be Long. It has a little section. It won't be long, yeah. Then it goes dun 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 dun. I would play that for hours in front of a mirror with my plastic guitar and a piece of rope.
No mop on your head?
Yeah. No, with a crew cut or whatever at the time.
Were you singing right off the bat too?
As best I could.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, trying to do that.
Right.
And I just loved it. And then I thought, I'm going to, now I need to get an electric guitar. And as I said, I had this extra money from my paper route. So my father, who was a musician, he was always very supportive. My mother was always hesitant or questioning, what are you spending this money on? But
where'd you go buy a guitar at the time?
I got it from, I was taking music lessons from the fellow Tony Luciano, who was a very skilled, during the 30s, 40s, 50s, a clarinet saxophone player. That's who my teacher was. And he was also giving me little lessons on the guitar. He was a very good musician, played everything. I think I bought it from him.
Okay.
And with a Dan Electro amp. And then I was at school. Let's see, I would have been in ninth grade, so I was at Gridley Junior High School. And the kid behind me in homeroom, because it was alphabetical order, was a Mike Wellagist.
Okay.
Who I didn't know real well and everything because we had different classes. But Mike sat behind me, and I found out that he was taking guitar lessons from the same fellow that I was taking my clarinet lessons. And so one day I turned around and I said, "Hey, Mike, you want to be in my band?" And that's exactly
You
what
didn't
I
have
said.
a band at the time?
No.
Yeah.
And then I went to St. Paul's United Church of Christ, and at that time, churches were packed with kids, especially youth programs. And a good friend of mine, Gary Swanson, who was my best friend growing up, from my church, I asked him, I said, "We need a bass player. Why don't you get your mom and dad to buy you a bass?" And I found it for him. He's laughing because this is the way I still am.
Well, I actually have a picture of you from St. Paul's in 1958. You before you must have been playing. You did. There was an entertaining sketches. The youth groups were doing, and you and Judy Duncombe did something called Watching Readies, a circus act.
Okay, I don't recall it, but I do remember the name.
Okay,
the Duncombe family. They had Duncombe Electronics on Parade Street.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the greatest picture, but
that is
there you
right
are.
in the middle.
Yeah.
Yes, that is.
Yeah, so I don't know what the circus act was.
Isn't that incredible?
No wonder your mom was concerned. You wanted to go into the circus at the time.
1958. Isn't that wonderful?
But so you always had that entertainment bug, obviously.
Well, I don't know, but I enjoyed our youth group at church very much.
Okay.
And Gary's parents went along with it. He got a Dan Electro bass.
Okay.
And he's now a physician and lives in the Nashville area.
Oh, okay. All right.
And so then all of a sudden now we got the three of us would start practicing. Mike Wallagis at that time had his grandmother's guitar, and it was a Gibson, or I don't know, somewhere in his family, it was an arch-top guitar, jazz guitar, a huge thing. He called it the Monster.
Okay.
That he would play it, and he was afraid that it was going to bite him. It had these F-holes. It was huge. And
his dad was the writer, right?
His
the
dad,
editor
Ed was the writer.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yes, a
okay.
fine man.
Yeah.
And so Mike, I'm not sure what happened. He sold that, or no, I think he gave it away. He traded it in. No, that was it.
Okay.
He traded it in on a single pickup harmony guitar. Mine was $49. I think his was $29.
Oh, geez.
And trust me, there was a significant difference between a 49 and 29. So he got rid of a guitar that today would cost thousands.
Thousands, I'm sure.
Thousands.
Yeah.
I still recall it was a beautiful archtop single cutaway, probably 4.5 inches wide with F-holes. And he got rid of that for this really piece of crap. And anyways, but he had an electric guitar.
Right,
now,
that's it.
And now we need a drummer. And again, through the same music teacher, he knew of this young man. I think he was in 10th grade. He went to Tech. His name was Joe DiTullio. And I haven't seen him probably in 45 years. But he had a set of drums. And he lived over by the Erie Cemetery his girlfriend, Donna, who lived a couple doors down, loved the TV show The Flintstones, and she liked the Flintstones had a daughter named Pebbles.
Sure, yeah.
So he formed a group, the Pebbles.
That was your name.
That was the name of the group.
All right.
And that's where we would practice. And he loved the Ventures. And I didn't mind the Ventures, but I certainly didn't want to be a Venture.
Right.
And so, because my hair was getting longer and I was really playing the guitar much better. So we played in the Tech Variety Show as the Pebbles, and as a negotiated settlement between my ideas and his ideas, we ended the first act as the final act, and the first act played Walk, Don't Run.
Okay, so that's the picture you showed me.
And that was the photo I was showing.
Yeah.
It's remarkable to have a photo of actually, playing that song.
Your
very first
live performance.
And then we ended the whole variety show singing the song "She Loves You."
Oh, okay.
And so, now I've been singing that song for 60 years. I've been singing that song longer than Paul McCartney.
That's right.
He doesn't do that in his live shows anymore.
So did you go to Tech?
No.
Why were you at the Tech variety show?
Because the drummer went to Tech.
Oh, okay.
That was
Only one person in the band had to attend that school.
Oh, okay.
We could have people from other schools
I didn't realize
participate
that.
in the group. Yeah.
Okay.
And Gary Swanson was going to Westminster Junior High School, which no longer exists.
Right.
It's where the Ed Center is
Right.
on Mill Creek, and Mike and I were at Gridley.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
that's how it was. Well, that was the first and only gig
Performance of the Pebbles?
Of the Pebbles.
Oh, no.
Okay.
So young.
So in bands, people come and go. And there was also a younger drummer, because I was in 9th grade. There was also a younger kid at our junior high who was a very good drummer, because I knew that. And Summy Nichols, who's now currently on the Erie School Board.
Sure, right.
And Summy and I got to be friends. And it was another situation. I called him up. I said, "Would you like to be in my band?" And so I remember he came over to Gary Swanson's house. He lived off of Gore Road, one Sunday afternoon. He brought his drums, and he auditioned, and he says, "Okay, yeah, you're in the band." And then we were off and running, playing, Wyco and the St. John's Club on Friday, or St. John's Dance up there on 23rd and Peach on Fridays.
Was that the car band?
Pardon me?
Was that the band named after the car? What was the name of that band?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, you don't even remember?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, this is the Marauders, yes.
This is the Marauders.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I forgot it was the name of a car.
Yeah.
I thought it was a horse.
I didn't know what he was talking about either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we do things like that. St. John's. And that was always fun because they had the disc jockeys were there. And they were the ones that were playing the records and talking. And you felt like a little star and everything because they would introduce you.
Oh.
And here they are. And blah, 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 for the Marauders. And you go out there and all the kids would be all excited, and you'd be all excited.
Did you play a whole set? Or
Yeah, you'd play probably about half an hour or so, maybe a couple times during the night.
Okay. All
And
right.
then they had that dance out there, the Fairfield Fire Hall, out there in Harbor Creek.
What was
Orange
that?
Park, Harbor
You
Creek.
guys
That's
both
where
mentioned
that was the first gig I played.
Was it a regular thing they did?
It was
Yeah, they had.
Saturday night.
It was the disc jockeys from Jet were the hosts.
Oh, okay.
Randy Michaels. Am
Yeah,
I
I think
digging
I've
these
heard of
names
that.
up?
Randy Michaels, Frank Martin, Johnny Holiday.
Johnny Holiday, yeah.
Yeah, his name's Bob
Yeah,
Buck, and he still does some things.
Lives
for
down
Jet.
the street from me. I know who he is.
Yeah, wonderful
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Gary Swanson and I, in the 60s would go to Jet when they were on 18th and Ash, and he'd be on the air because he was only maybe about 2 or 3 years older than us.
Right.
And then we'd knock on the window, and he'd come out, and when we was playing a record, and let us come in there, and we'd listen to the latest records that he was playing.
That's cool.
And so that was always fun.
Yeah.
I had a great time. And then Gary left. His father got a job in Marinette, Wisconsin.
Okay.
This is during when he was a sophomore, so this is in 10th grade. And we were just heartbroken. We were very good friends. We were best men in each other's weddings in the 70s. And so, all right, now I'm not going to. We need a bass player, and I thought, gee, I'd like to get a Hofner guitar. I had already had a J160. I bought that in '64.
Okay.
So again, I had that paper.
All that paper route money.
It really was wonderful.
That's right. You're rolling in it.
It was.
Yeah.
He's still got some of it.
Okay. You still got that Hofner?
I still have it.
Yes,
Do
he
you?
does.
You both have Hofners.
Well, I bought everything he has.
Okay, all right.
Well, the Hofner story that I have is priceless. It really is. Gary and I were calling around to all the music stores. And I knew Markham's because that's where I had bought the J160 in '64, and they only carried Gibson guitars, or primarily Gibson. Osiki's carried Fenders, and the smallest Erie store was Dick Billings' World of Music.
Sure.
Now it's a very large store, but at that time it was very small, and they carried a Swedish guitar called Hagströms.
Oh yeah.
They were aluminum, and they had wonderful necks. I mean, nowadays I
Great
like
necks.
the guitar.
Fantastic
But at
necks.
the time, I thought, oh, what
Not the greatest.
Hofner,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, right.
But then, so every time I'd call around to these music stores and ask, do you have Rickenbackers? Do you have Gretches? Do you have Hofners? And they would say no. Obviously, they had never heard of a Hofner.
And for those folks who don't know what a Hofner bass is, it's the Beatle bass. It's the violin-looking bass.
That's correct.
So
That's correct.
You can kind of picture the prototypical.
It's
bass
actually
that-
based on a Gibson bass.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, the Gibson had the first violin-shaped bass that Jack Bruce plays.
Oh, okay.
The single
Yeah.
pickup,
Right,
yeah,
right.
that was based on that bass.
All right.
And it had a headstock that was curled like a bass.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
that one, not the Hofner, the Gibson one.
Oh, okay. All right.
Really unusual looking.
So where did you find
So
it?
no, what I did then, the last place I called out of the Yellow Pages was Ron Zede Music, which is now where Federal Barbecue is.
Oh, okay.
On Peach Street there.
Is that where Basil and those guys taught?
Basil? No, that's where. Well, I didn't
It's
take any
actually the
lessons.
building next to where the T-shirt is. That
Oh,
was,
okay.
yeah, that was the studio. That's where I studied.
Oh, okay.
That's where I
didn't
took
realize
guitar
that.
It
lessons.
was up there and
bass
everything.
lessons.
And at that time, Basil was just, let's see, if I would have been, he would have been in his early 20s. So
Okay.
it wasn't Basil. I didn't know him until much, much later on. But his father was handling the music store.
Moses.
Right.
Yeah, and I asked him, I said, can you get a Hofner guitar, a Hofner bass? He goes, he had his accent, he goes, yeah, you can get it.
Yeah.
I said, no crap, you can get that. So we couldn't even drive.
Yeah, right.
I think Gary took a bus, and I don't think I took a bus. I think I had my grandfather, who was just a remarkable, wonderful man, drive me over to the store. And so we went there, looked at the catalog, and you actually can order this darn thing. And we looked at it, and so I decided, okay, I'm going to order it.
How much?
It was $295.
Oh, okay.
It was a lot of
Yeah,
money.
that's a lot,
For
yeah.
1964. And so I remember the catalog. I walked away excited and disappointed because the picture that I had ordered, it was a Hofner. It had a black pickguard. It was very, very dark. It wasn't the Beatle bass.
Right. It was a darker one. Yeah.
Because what was going on is that they didn't know how much of a market they had at that point. So they were just doing a 1965 model.
Oh, gotcha.
Because
Okay,
why
right.
the Beatles were brand new.
Right.
So I'll get it anyways. And so I bought it, and it came in probably about 6 or 7 weeks later. And then my grandfather, I'm sure, took me up to the store. I opened it up, and my breath was taken away.
Really?
Because what I got was not the one I ordered, but the one I wanted.
The one that looked like
one
the
that was
natural
it was-
finish.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So that was the very first Hofner that come into Erie.
Wow.
And Moses told me that he became friends with the rep, this German fellow. The Basil told me this probably about 30 years later.
Yeah.
And Basil says that was Mike Hoffner is the second one that came to the country. This is early '65.
Yeah, right.
And because he became his father became good friends with this Hoffner distributor, rep, because he was German. They were both immigrant people. So I don't know if that's 100% true or not.
But still, it's got to be one of the early
Actually,
ones.
after you bought yours, there was another one in the window. He bought two.
Okay.
Because another bass player bought it. I bought mine from Bullings. I don't know how
did?
Bullings I got mine in '66. So
yours
was
was-
400.
But it was used.
No, brand new.
Oh, they started carrying them too.
Yeah,
Or-
but no,
okay.
Dick had a way of
ordered
getting
them.
things he didn't have a license. I bought a Rickenbacker when they have ways of doing things.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and
Dick could find anything. If you wanted it, Dick had it.
So you have one of the coolest bases in town at the
It's
time.
beautiful.
Oh, I
It's
had
very
the
dark.
coolest.
Very
I mean,
dark.
back
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
And were you playing bass?
Yeah, I became the bass player.
You became the bass player.
I became the bass
Mike-
player, which was an easy thing to do because Mike Wallace was a far better guitar
Gotcha.
player than I
Right,
was.
right. That's
I
right.
mean, when we originally formed the group in '64, I was the lead guitar player just because I had about 6 months of experience.
Right.
But Mike was one of those kids that would go into his bedroom and just study and work and work. He would play songs like Andy Bird could sing both parts by himself.
Yeah.
I mean, he is still a remarkable
Phenomenal
musician.
guitar player.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. He makes it look easy.
Is he still around? Or,
He lives in the Las Vegas area.
He came over to Bob's house about 10 or 12 years ago, and he was sitting there, and we had him play guitar for us. He was just amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Does he play out there?
No, I don't know.
No.
He has tremendous potential, but
Yeah.
he did what he did. But what a musician.
Yeah.
Well, what was this band again?
This is still
Marauders.
Marauders.
Still the Marauders.
This kid's
Okay.
16 years old. Even Bob told me at 12 or 14, these kids were playing Hendrix.
That's crazy.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't care how old you are. If you can play, I'm in.
Yeah. Right.
I don't care how
Yeah, I
old.
was perfectly happy playing the bass.
You were? Okay, yeah.
I still prefer either playing the bass or playing a rhythm guitar.
Actually-
I'll play lead because we need that in the Beatle Boys, but
Right.
I prefer those other instruments or parts.
Gotcha.
Both Mike Miller and him are bass players.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So it was three bass
initially.
players and a drummer.
Yeah. Right.
But they went beyond me.
Gotcha. You're like, I just want to be the bass player.
Playing McCartney parts is not easy.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
So all the way through high school, we had a great time. And then, like, Clark Walker was another young man that was a friend of ours in high school.
Right.
He had a Farfisa organ, and he went out and bought a Tennessean, a Gretsch Tennessean up in
I went with him.
Cleveland.
We got in
Well,
Cleveland up on the third floor. They were selling Gretches.
And that's
At
a big
Higbee's.
hollow body,
At
right?
Higbee's.
A
It's a
Tennessean?
single cutaway.
Okay. Yeah.
I think he paid
The red
$300
one.
for it or something like that.
All right.
Yeah, and then so Clark was usually in and out of the group.
Oh,
There was-
okay.
Yeah, there was also another.
He's the one that recruited me to put a band together to beat the Marauders, which
Oh.
we could never do.
Okay.
Not as long as I'm in it.
What type of music was the Marauders playing?
Oh, it's just all that classic '60s stuff.
British Invasion.
All
The
current stuff, right?
Beatles,
Yep.
the Beatles, Rolling Stones.
Where were you playing?
We played just all those little dances until we hit the big time, which were the fraternity party.
Oh, yeah.
Oh!
They were in high school going to frat parties, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like Animal House.
It was wild.
He was living the dream in high
I
school.
was going to say, that
Yeah.
had to be the greatest gig of all.
Yeah.
But you're a 15-year-old kid,
And your
doing
kid
this.
parents are driving
Your
you.
parents have to pick you up,
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
like at 2 in the morning and everything. So
Tim Gerline told me a similar story about the Calientes, and they walked into the frat house, and one of the frat brothers looked at him and said, "Why?" They looked at the other frat brother and said, "Why did you hire these guys?
Yeah.
They're like 15-year-old kids." And they started playing, and they turned around. And he goes, "Now I know why you hired these guys."
I played a lot of frat parties in high
you?
school and college.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were. As a matter of fact, I played for his fraternity when he wasn't playing. He went to a toga party. His fraternity had a toga party.
Out at Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Edinburgh,
I saw him in his beanie when he was pledging and stuff. But yeah, he was a frat boy.
So that was a big deal. to
Not
be able-
for me, for him.
I mean, to be in high school to play frat parties, and it was
Oh,
a
it's
common.
fun.
Are you
thing.
kidding me?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Yeah.
I didn't play him, but he played him.
Those are the stories that you were
I was
not
in
going to tell
college,
me. Is
yeah.
that what you're telling me?
it's a good thing because our kids are going to listen.
Okay,
so
good,
some
good.
things not to talk
Grandchildren,
about.
you mean?
But we would play the fraternity parties, in the Erie area, and they were a great deal of fun, and they paid you a lot better too. So, and then as we got driver's license, I remember then we played fraternity parties down in Greenville, down at Teal College. There was somebody in Erie that probably about 10 years older than us was a graduate there, and so we got a lot of gigs down there. And it was a fun time. And then obviously that came to an end in '67, and I went to college.
Okay, so you graduate in '67.
I graduated from high school in '67,
right.
and then went to Edinburgh. I wanted to be a secondary social studies teacher because I liked history a great deal.
Right.
And then around October or so, I got a call from Pete Peterson, who's since passed away, asking if I'd be interested in auditioning for the Raven Band with Phil and Tim.
Right.
And
the
so
Popotnick brothers.
Yeah. Pete lived in Titusville, came over to Edinburgh one Sunday and picked me up and everything. And he drove me there, and we auditioned. And I mean, the songs that were out there were "Sunshine of My Love." At that time, was a new song.
Sure.
Jimi Hendrix was still new. Sgt. Pepper was the most recent Beatle album.
Okay.
And so, they were. I already knew who they were because there was Bob would have been there, I think, also the night. There was this audition.
I used to go see him play all the time.
There was this audition it was called the White Elephant. Now it's just a concrete block.
There were multiple
building.
White Elephants around, but
This one was out by the St. Benedict's Monastery.
Gotcha.
And now it really looks like something from the World War II. It's just all grown over, just some concrete. But next to where a drive-in theater used to be.
Yeah.
But we went out there to audition to play on their stage or play with another band, and we did a song. A Music Machine, Talk or something, and we were all dressed in black because now we were influenced by this more heavy type of a sound. And then so we're playing, and everybody, Bob, I think his band was there. They were playing. There was probably 8 bands, and so then I think the last band or another band came up here. There was these three guys, only 3, and it's Phil and Tim Popotnick, and it's Pete Peterson on drums. And they come out there and they have these beige pants on and they have these Edgar Allan Poe jackets on with a little ruffled
Oh yeah.
Thing. And they came out and we go, who are these goofballs?
And Tim's playing keys. Phil's playing what?
Guitar.
He's playing guitar.
There's a 3-piece. Tim's playing keyboard, bass.
Oh right.
Singing. And looking around the room he's doing 3 things simultaneously. 3-piece. They did "Keep Me Hanging On." They did
Renee, Walk Away,
Renee, 3-part harmony.
And they were the Raven Band at that
Oh
point.
my God! And they
were just called the Ravens.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
They did 4 tops. Bernadette.
And
Pete Peterson.
They were good.
Pete Peterson could sing Bernadette.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he could sing. Vanilla Fudge.
Did Phil sing?
Phil's always. He sang last night. He sings harmony. He does. I said, "What note you singing?" I go to him. "What note you sing?" He goes, "I don't know. I just grabbed a note." I said, "Could you tell me which note in the chord you're singing?" Well, I'll start there and try and find the one that's missing.
So what happened? Did you?
Well, no, they were just phenomenal.
They took over.
They were really.
They did not need him.
And so I thought, no, this is great. So, anyways, I knew who they were when they called me.
Right.
I went down there and I auditioned. And I like to think it made an improvement. Now, Tim didn't have to bother with that. But I played them only about a year, though. I think I left when Hey Jude came out.
Okay.
So that was in '68. But we still reminisce about those days. I mean, it was a very, very good band. We went and auditioned for a record up at some studio up in Cleveland.
Wow.
And, I mean, it was an exciting time. But I was also at that time dating my wife of 51 years.
Okay.
And we met in '67 at school in September. And
we should point out you've both been married for 50 years, 50 plus years.
Yeah.
Very impressive. You've known each other.
Why are you bringing that up?
Congratulations. Because I know who the real bosses are that are listening right now. So.
But with except for the high school experience about playing, my wife and I has always been integral part of this whole thing.
That's awesome.
Because we were both freshmen in school, and our dating that first year of our relationship was essentially she'd get in the van with the rest of the band on Fridays and Saturday nights and sometimes Sundays and go around northwestern Pennsylvania, Franklin, Oil City, Titusville, Girard, Erie, and But then at that time I thought, gee, now I'm really making good money. I'm making about $50 a week doing this. And
cleaning up.
yeah.
Who needs a newspaper wrap?
And we'd go out and, you go out for dinner every night to this hamburger shop, in Edinburgh. But, that went on for a year and everything. And then it really came down to a decision. Do I want to stay with this relationship or do I want to continue with the band? And I chose her. And
good choice.
Well, yes, it is. It's turned out to be very, very good choice. And still remain very good friends with Pete. Pete has passed away, but with Phil and Tim.
Yep.
I mean, there was never an animosity. There was not an argument. They were sad. I was sad. I remember Pete and I were paddling around out in the Canandaigua Lake, one night and everything. And I said that he was really upset about it because he was the primary singer, but I was always the secondary singer.
Gotcha.
I sang a lot of songs too. And then after that, it was just the college career until 72. John Puzar and I were living, my wife and I were living above them on 17th Street, above John Puzar, who's currently in Abbey Road.
Right.
And we formed another little band with Denny Cray, who had just came back from Vietnam.
Deputy Dog.
Right. And Denny came up with that number. And then we had Frank Fischetti, a friend of mine from school, for 1 year before he went student teaching. And we played different places around Erie.
Played the Shangri-La.
John would remember these things.
Yeah, Partners before it was what Partners is today.
Yeah, I remember that.
How much did you pay them?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Then when Frank Fischetti left, we just became a loud trio.
I was going to say what same type of stuff. Cream, Hendrix.
That was about it. I would use 2 bass cabinets, and I essentially would play. I had a fuzz tone on, and I'd smash the guitar and everything like that.
Okay.
Smash the bass. And then that only went on for about a year and a half, 2 years.
Right.
And then we were supposed to do my wife's Christmas party at her school. She was a school teacher. We were both teachers at the time.
At this point, so you mentioned Edinburgh, you mentioned whatever it was, education, but you become a psychologist, right?
Yeah. That's the next part of this.
Okay.
This is during the Deputy Dog era.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay.
During the Deputy Dog era, and that's when we did this. We couldn't do that job, so I had a reel-to-reel tape recorder that was 2-track, and then I recorded the other parts, so I could still do Holly songs and different other things by just pre-recording backup vocals.
Interesting.
And then I scrapped that after about 6 months and had enough confidence just to play totally solo. And so, but then at that time, there were a lot of places to play. I could go to Bethwick's on like Friday night. I could do the Kelsall Beach Hotel,
right?
Like for a Friday and Saturday. Yeah. And then on top of that, I was going to graduate school again in Edinburgh. And a person out there, Denny Del Porto, he's an entrepreneur. He owns a lot of apartments and also the Uncle Charlie's Pizza.
Oh, okay.
Place.
Sure.
So I would play there 2 nights a week.
Just solo?
Solo.
Yeah, all these places you're playing solo.
These are all solos. So
okay.
This was 2 nights a week out in Edinburgh, and I could go pick the night that I wanted to do, and I'd base it around what classes I was taking. The graduate classes I was taking were usually just 2 nights a week.
Well, how was that? I mean, this is your first time playing solo, right?
Yeah.
I mean, scary or?
Well, maybe the first few times.
Yeah.
I had been playing for so long, it didn't matter. Obviously, it's nerve-wracking when you first started.
Yeah, right.
I mean, with the Beatle Boys, that's what I refer to Abbey Road as, the Beatle Boys. I remember the first job we did in the We Love Erie days in '95. I was really scared there.
Really?
I mean, I hadn't played in the band since long ago.
Yeah.
Anyways, I did that until my son was born in '75, and then I became the politician for the next
you became a
15 years
county councilman, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And did that for a while.
Didn't play during that time?
No.
Oh,
no.
okay. So you each had sort of a period where...
I hadn't seen him for like 20-some years when I called him.
Okay.
I called him out of the blue, and I called Mike Miller out of the blue and Rick Cass.
And...
It's just in my mind. This was the perfect local Beatle band.
Were you still a county councilman when the Abbey Road started?
He just lost.
Okay.
If he'd spent any money on his re-election, he didn't spend anything, so it's not unexpected.
So you had that big break also for a while.
Because I always, growing up, I enjoyed, my heroes were Mickey Mantle when I was real young and everything, and then it was John F. Kennedy and the Beatles.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm very fortunate. I played this little low-key level of all these things that I enjoyed in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed government, and I enjoyed politics, and I enjoyed running in elections.
Yeah.
Didn't like losing as much as winning, but
sure.
And I've enjoyed playing music.
And you played with Fudge for a little while too, as a duo,
Played with
right?
Fudge until I was digitally downsized. And
Yeah.
everything was
He
okay.
threw him out. He
Downsized.
threw
That
him out
is-
for machines.
That's how it is.
We're suing all machines now.
No, Fudge wants to play all the time.
Fudge does play all the time.
He's
all Fudge all the time.
Yeah, Fudge all the time.
he's been one of my best friends for
Yeah.
He's our friend
40
for
years.
years.
Tell everybody Fudge's real name.
Bob Farajani.
Okay, all right.
And no, we're very good friends. We get together in Florida because we're both snowbirds.
Oh,
too.
you are? Okay.
Oh yeah, they're away.
All right. So you both mentioned different musicians that you really not idolized, but looked up to and respected and stuff over the years. In those early days, like Bob, you had talked about going to see Bob's bands and things like that. Were there bands that you liked to go see back then when you were actively playing out in the 70s or something that you?
When I was playing in the 70s, I didn't see anybody.
Because you were too busy.
I was working.
That's what I wondered.
Yeah, the working musicians don't see anybody.
Did you ever encounter those guys at like after-hour joints where you're?
Oh, they came to see me.
Okay.
They played
'Cause
till
they had to
2,
go to
and
the
I played till
Calabrese.
3.
Right.
So they come in, and then we
Yeah.
kind of those stories I can't tell you about.
Right.
Would happen until about 6.
Gotcha. Right. Yeah.
And then we all go home.
Sure. Right.
But after we get done, we'd hang out. The different bands that hang out, the
Right.
Cows and stuff. I mean,
Sure.
that's how they stole Dickie Buckland and Angela Natalia.
Right.
I thought, these guys are cool. Next thing I know, hey, we're quitting. I mean, those guys we met last night?
Yeah. They're gone.
So then I had to call, make some other phone calls. But, back then, bands switched around, and Mike Wallages, which we were talking about,
Yeah,
he's
that's-
probably one of the best guitar players I ever saw.
Yeah, when you and I first met just a few weeks ago, you mentioned him to me and said, like, this is one of those guys.
It'd be
that
like
people in
watching
Erie
Jeff.
don't
It'd be
know.
like
Yeah,
watching
he's a
Jeff.
prodigy. He
Yeah.
really is.
You'd be like watching Jeff Beck right here.
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
and you go, how does he do that? It's all muscle memory. But
Yeah.
he's done the work. He's done the work. Basil Ronzetti, my teacher.
Yeah. Right.
He got me into jazz, and I got me some jazz gigs. And I would say Basil.
and
Basil.
Basil taught you too, right?
Well,
Just a little. I talked to him. He took 1 year from him. I took 12 or 13 years
Okay,
from Basil.
all right.
And he was more of my mentor
Yeah, right.
and like a friend, like a father figure
Sure,
to me.
right.
Basil was a wonderful man. I took lessons for about a year. I went in there. I said, Basil, I just want to learn to play the blues. That's it. I don't want to do anything else.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
And he goes, no. He didn't say no. We just never got to it.
Oh, okay.
So
A lot of writing.
we
A
were
lot of
good.
writing.
That's what I was going to say. What was Basil like as a teacher? I hear so many people have taken lessons
A
from
lot
him.
of writing. My lesson was an hour long. It usually lasted 2 hours. And when in 14 years of taking lessons from him, probably 4 times he'd say, "Nice session."
That was
And if you did really, really well and practiced 2 hours a day for 2 weeks, he gave you more work.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all the, like Novello, all the great players that left Erie,
Sure.
all are his students
Yep.
and stuff.
That's
you
why
know.
his name's come up so
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
And Stan Bielomsky, the jazz player, I played with him with Carl Haltman.
Okay. Yeah.
He's the thing about Basil and Stan is, as great as they are, they're that humble.
Okay. Yeah.
And, they don't take themselves,
Too seriously. That's
no,
great.
no. And that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
But Basil was kind of like a dad to me,
So
Not
you-
just me, everyone, even John Novello.
Bob Seaman, you mentioned earlier you're playing in Mambo, you play in Abbey Road these days. You've played with a lot of folks over the time. And one of the things that you're working on right now is the tribute for Paul Yocklin with the reincarnation
Oh,
of
yeah.
Ruby Port. That's coming up. You're a busy guy. Bob Walkow, what's going on with you
Well-
aside from Abbey Road? Anything else?
Well,
Anything?
during the winter, I play down in Florida.
You do?
Yeah, I do an acoustic thing down there, either at the condo area where we live, or in different bars and everything.
So
like
you stay
down
busy
there.
too.
Yeah, and there it's like every 2 weeks.
All right.
I've never been like Bob and everything, playing all the time.
Okay,
I
all
never
right.
have. I enjoy
Yeah.
8 or 9 Abbey Road gigs during the summer.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. How often does Abbey Road play?
We usually play 13 to 14 times. This year, because I'm traveling, he's traveling, and he's going to Europe, and I'm going to Europe in a couple weeks. It's just a hobby. Well, we get together once a week. We're going to play 14
still
gigs.
do?
Yeah, we get.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
we're
great.
friends.
Yeah, right.
I've always associated with bowling. That's essentially
It's
my
like a
bowling.
Yeah, or
league.
like going to watch a football game. No, we get together once a week. We're friends.
Okay.
And we play music together. We play Beatles stuff together.
How often are you learning a new song?
A different song.
A different song.
Him and I have, how many have we?
We've done, probably there's only maybe 25 or 30 Beatles songs that Bob and I have never done.
Okay, all right.
That's it. But then we've done...
Number 9's one of them.
Good.
You
you can skip that one.
With the personnel, what we can do.
Right.
You're as good as the weakest link.
And,
right.
There was different, creations of the Abbey Road Beatle Boy group that could do different things.
Right.
We could do a different repertoire when Mike Miller was here and Rick
Right.
Cass because of their skill level and also with the second keyboard. I mean, we would use 2 keyboards.
Double lead guitar.
Sometimes
Double keyboards.
I played maybe an acoustic, not an acoustic, but a lead guitar part on the keyboard and everything. So we could do a lot of different things. We did songs like Hello Goodbye. We even did that.
Yeah.
But now it depends on who's in the group, how complicated it is. Right now, I think we're doing very, very well with what we can do, and it seems to be popular. We try to mix in maybe about 10 or 12 keyboard things. That's
what I was going to ask you. How often are you playing keyboard?
Well, probably
more than he wants.
A third of the time.
Okay, all right.
And I enjoy playing the keyboard. I really love it. It's just like it's being the second guy in the group, dragging double stuff, which I never complain about.
And he owns and he owns 30 guitars. So.
Well, what is that keyboard that you're dragging?
Actually, the one
it's not even that much.
Yeah, it doesn't look that big.
1987 Roland D20.
Okay, all right.
I mean, that's the first keyboard I bought.
Oh, all right.
I told you.
It's only 61 keys.
Yeah.
And I got other ones at home, but it has the sounds. Now I use a Proteus sound module, which still to this day I think has the greatest string sounds.
Gotcha.
None of that tremolo stuff. It's just a pure cut-through string sound. And I'll just mix together sounds to come up with Strawberry Fields.
Yeah.
So I'll use 4 different settings to play Strawberry Fields.
That's cool.
And if you pick out the primary parts, your ear will fill in anything that's missing.
Right.
So, and then we'll do Mr. Kite, Strawberry Fields, Got to Get You My Life.
Yeah.
Good Day Sunshine.
So, Bob Walkow, because you've given me kind of an answer to this question already, what's your favorite gig that you've done with Abbey Road so far? Over the years, all the different incarnations. Like you mentioned your biggest, Bob Seaman. Like what do you consider, what do you tell people, like one time we played the Warner or wherever?
It really comes down to any of the bigger gigs are sort of like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and that stuff.
Yeah.
Only like a half an hour. And you couldn't do an awful lot because you were just relying on their sound system.
What was that for?
There was a week tribute to John Lennon.
Okay.
And Paul Rogers and I, who was a member of the group, we went up there for a cocktail party, I think the night before or something. We drove up to Cleveland, and we met Stuart Sutcliffe's sister.
Okay.
There was an art exhibit of Stuart Sutcliffe's work, who was a former bass player of the Beatles. And so we did things like that. And that was fun. But to tell you the truth, probably that I really enjoyed this past Friday night.
Where did you play Friday?
Just up in Spring Hill.
Oh, Spring Hill. Right.
We had our own monitors.
Gotcha.
Because when people run sound for you, it doesn't quite turn out the way you'd think it would.
I gotcha.
And they're always eating while they're running sound. What is that up?
Yeah, I gotcha.
The biggest problem for us, it has been since the Mike Miller and the Rick Cass days of doing the outdoor festivals with a sound person. They don't know the song.
They don't care.
And they don't know who's singing.
Gotcha.
And they shut your mic off. They say, he's not singing. I'm getting a bleed there. I'll shut that. He's moving his mouth now.
So
I'll turn up real slow.
Gotcha.
When we use our own sound system, our own sound man
that knows how to mix,
it can just be magical.
Who is your sound man?
Right now, Andy Wagner, who's a good friend of mine.
Okay.
Whenever John Puzar, who's now in the music part of the group.
Oh, okay.
When
Yeah.
he was
John's been an apprentice for over 15, 20
Is
years.
that what it is?
Yeah,
John-
we had to let him in because he was carrying everything.
John's a great guitar player, but
Yeah.
he isn't a great singer. Tom's a pretty good singer, but not a very good guitar player.
That's how you put a band together.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Bob and I negotiated over that,
And they're willing to lug equipment.
Yeah.
So that's perfect.
Well, one of them is.
Okay. All
We
right.
really wanted to
Say
have
no
4
more.
people. We've always just had 4, but
I
it just
prefer
wasn't-
4.
It
Yeah.
just wasn't.
I can
gonna
do the
work.
math much better.
Gotcha.
And John had put in his time. He
John had
definitely
done enough.
So, anyways,
He's the only one up there smiling all the time.
oh, he is. But that's the problem when you use your own sound stuff. And he knows what he's doing. He can adjust the keyboard for the
Sure.
song.
Right.
And then
Right.
it works perfectly.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so, I mean, I would say the best time I had that we sounded was just, 2 nights ago.
That's great.
That's
great.
What about the 8 Great Tuesdays? Just stressful and hot? One time for 8 Great Tuesdays, we were dressed as like the cover for Abbey Road. I had a black suit on. It was 95 degrees out. I started going to the heat exhaustion.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I was so hot I couldn't drink beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really bad. And we played 2 hours.
And you guys have played a lot of those big festivals. And a
Yeah,
lot
we
of times
played
that's
probably
it.
6 to 8 Great Tuesdays.
Right.
I think actually the one we played, we headlined, it was probably as close to the limits. 7. There was no place to sit.
Yeah, I think I was at
7,000,
that one.
8,000.
Right.
I don't know. It was up there with the
Yeah.
Jake level,
Right. Yeah.
the blues level.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. I think this was great, and I'll take some of those photos, and we'll get some of those posted on your episode page. And I appreciate you both being here today.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice
It was
meeting you,
a lot
Dan.
of fun.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Thank you,
great.
Dan.
All right.
Thanks for listening, and special thanks to the JPT Foundation for sponsoring the podcast and for letting us use their events hall once a month for our free music night featuring the Fabulous Leftovers. They're a band of longtime Erie musicians who play for an hour and then are followed by 2 hours of an open mic. All the proceeds for the event go to the Second Harvest Food Bank. The music nights are held the first Tuesday of the month from 6 to 9 at the Events Hall, which is located on West 38th Street in the plaza right next to Our Lady of Peace Church. If you like the podcast and would like to help me out, because this is not a money-making endeavor for me, you can contribute a few bucks via Venmo or Patreon. Just go to the Erie Music History Podcast website for the links. And finally, for information on what bands and musicians are playing in Erie and the surrounding area, please check out Jack Stevenson's 2-Man Happy Hour podcast and webpage. Jack gives you all the details you need each week on who is playing where. That's 2-Man Happy Hour podcast. So, I'm Chip Shell, and I thank you again for listening to the Erie Music History Podcast.